earlier on this morning, I got the reaction of the MEP, Jim Allister.
Well, I think generally the whole expenses row, the greed that has been indicated, and in fact the particular dimension in Northern Ireland of the double jobbing and the family dynasty building has brought great shame upon politics. It's brought the whole process into disrepute, and public are very angry about it. I've obviously been on the doors all week, and it is the single big issue that people are talking about.
Well, you would say that, Jim, wouldn't you? The Robinsons are at pains to point out that they are totally working within the rules.
The rules are totally wrong, and whether within those rules or outside those rules, people are claiming the amounts which have been stated. It is nonetheless exercising the public mind, and the public have a right in hard economic times, people who struggle to pay their grocery bill every week, to be very angry in general with the body politic. In the European Parliament, the expenses regime is far from perfect. I'm the first to admit that. But at least we do not get an allowance which can be abused to buy property. We get an allowance to pay for your hotel bill if you turn up in Brussels or Strasbourg.
Well, you say an allowance that can be abused to buy property. Of course, others who actually used that allowance would say they looked at the rules, they were allowed to buy property, and that's what they did. Let's focus on the food bill from Northern Ireland's First Minister, Peter Robinson, and indeed his wife. £30,000 in 4 years.
It sounds a lot when you factor in the fact that the DUP generally doesn't have the highest attendance record in Westminster. Present modus operandi seems to be that they may turn up on a Wednesday to attend Parliament and maybe on a Thursday, but that apart, they're not great attenders, so it does stretch one's imagination a little as to how bills of this nature are accumulated.
Do you think we should be paying MPs for food at all? If they were at home, they would be eating. Why are we paying them for their groceries when they're in London?
Well, I think there may be something of a case that London is the most expensive place to eat within the United Kingdom, but I think the manner in which that could be done is as it is done in the European Parliament, where you get a daily allowance to cover your hotel bill. And I think that's a much fairer thing because it's related at least to actual expenditure.
What did you claim for food last year?
I didn't claim anything for food. I don't get a food allowance. I buy my own food. But, I think that the added dimension here in Northern Ireland is the double jobbing, because these are all full-time jobs. Being an MP, an Assembly member, or a member of the European Parliament, they're full-time jobs, they're paid as full-time jobs, and that's how they should be done. And the double jobbing is the big extra Northern Ireland dimension which adds to the scandal of this matter, and which I think excites so much resentment by ordinary folk in these difficult times.
Ordinary folk might be wondering about you, Jim Allister, this morning. Is there any expense whatsoever that you're wondering you should pay back?
No, there's nothing that I should be paying back because I haven't received anything that I shouldn't have received. I receive the same salary as an MP at Westminster. I receive a travel allowance to travel to Brussels or Strasbourg. I receive a daily attendance allowance to pay for my hotel bills. I receive office expenses allowance which don't cover the cost of my office. And I receive secretarial allowance, nothing like food bills or anything else.
The mistake that Mr Robinson made when he claimed £1,223 for the service charge on his London flat, that would be the same amount that his wife claimed, and this was then rejected by the House of Commons Fees Office. Mr Robinson's claim was rejected. What do you think about that?
Well, if that was a genuine mistake, I have no criticism whatsoever to make of that. We all make mistakes. I don't think that's the biggest issue in all of this.
There have been so many MPs, though, over recent days saying, I made a mistake. I made a mistake. Do you think the public will accept those mistakes?
Well, I suppose from my past life I was very used to clients telling me they'd made mistakes when there were suspicions that it wasn't just as easily explained. But yeah, there have been a lot of excuses made about these matters. I'm not joining in any song and dance about that particular one because I could understand maybe how that would happen. But I think generally if one's to make a collective comment that there has been a lot of excuse-making which isn't washing with the public.
You're a QC, right?
Yes.
What would happen on the general point if someone who was suspected of benefit fraud went into court, Jim Allister, and said, look, hold on a minute, yes, I tried to get that amount of money, but it was a mistake? What would the court say?
Well, the court would be very, very sceptical and be unlikely, I think, to be easily persuaded that that was so, and therefore would visit punishment upon that person unless it was very, very clear that it was indeed a genuine mistake, which is hard to imagine. Even
if they hadn't received the money?
Oh, obviously that would mitigate the matter very considerably if they hadn't. But there would be offences of attempted deception, etc., which would be relevant in that situation.
So, what is the difference in law, in your view, between a mistake and fraud?
Well, fraud is where there is a deliberate intent to set about perfecting a deception. A mistake is something where what we call in the law the mens rea, the intention to commit the offence, is absent.
How do you prove which is which?
Well, I suppose the courts have to evaluate on the evidence, on the credibility of the person making the claim, and reach a conclusion whether or not the person, if they're charged with a criminal offence where mens rea is a requisite part of it, whether or not they had the criminal mind, they had the criminal intent to commit the offence. And that's something the courts and juries have to wrestle with day and daily.
This double jobbing issue that you've brought up many, many times now during this interview, again, it's within the rules.
It is, and it shouldn't be. The European Parliament quite rightly bans members from belonging to any other parliamentary assembly, and I believe that every other institution where they offer full-time employment to members should do the same, and I think that Northern Ireland has not been served well by double jobbing, and it would serve the interests of the people a lot better if they elected an assembly member knowing he would be an assembly member 5 days a week, and elected an MP knowing he'd be an MP 5 days a week, and you would have a far better standard and constancy of representation than you presently have, where there may be an assembly member for 2 days a week, an MP for 2 days a week, and things like that. You know, it's not right. These are full-time jobs, and they should be so treated, and the public should not be treated with the contempt that they are treated by those who double job on them.
The DP's already indicated that some of its MPs will stand down. Is that not enough for you? Do you want them to stand down now?
They can stand down now. The Assembly has an arrangement where you can be replaced instantly without the cost or trouble of a by-election. So those Assembly members could stand down today, and indeed if there was sincerity about the intent, they could deliver actuality to their declared intent by doing it now. So
that's not what the issue.
If it's to be done sometime in the future, why not now? Why procrastinate with it?
But this is not what the issue of public confidence surely is about. You're trying to tell me it is, but it isn't.
Well, it's all tied in. I'd have to tell you, I've talked to hundreds of people this week in the campaign, and it is the most prevalent subject: expenses, double jobbing, people getting more salaries than one for doing jobs which are freestanding jobs. It's intertwined very much